MyersRiveting.com. In the second post for the Smith house, I'm going to go over grid lines. As you can see, I've already laid out the grid lines for the columns that we're going to use for the public side of the house. But before we go ahead with the next step, let's take a step back so we can go over the basics of grid lines. Grid lines are located on the Home tab and in the Datum panel. When you click on the tool, it'll take you to the Modified Place Grid tab. In the Draw panel, you can select what type of grid line you want to create. You can create a straight line, options for a couple of arc lines, and pick a line which will let you create a grid using a model line or an edge line from the geometry in your project. Before you place a grid in the view, you can change the grid type. To do this, go to the Properties palette, then click the Type selector. The Type selector will show all the grid types that you have loaded up in the project. To place a grid line in the project, you simply click, then drag, and then click again when it's the length you want. You can also place grid lines by using the offset in the option bar. You simply enter a dimension, then click and drag, and it will offset the amount that you put in the offset. When placing a grid in the drawing, Revit automatically numbers each grid and remembers the number and letter that you last used. For example, if you had an S in the grid bubble, then the next value of the bubble would be a T, and so on. And you can also change the grid number. You click, and bring up a box for you. Enter a new value. And then hit enter. You can also do this in the properties dialog or property palette. Going to the name property, and it'll change. Now that the grid is in the view, you can create copies of the grid line using a variety of methods. The first is use the copy tool. You click the grid, click the copy in the modify panel, and then copy it out. If you want to create many copies or multiple copies, click the grid, use the array tool, use this, drag it down, and you can make multiple copies at one time. Another way to make a grid line, click the grid, right click, and hit create similar. And this way you can make a grid line without having to go back to the home and grid. If you notice this blue dashed line here, this means that the grids are aligned and locked together. It means they move as one. If you just want to move one grid, click the lock, and that way you can move the grid. To align it back, just go back till the blue line hovers, and then click the lock. The grid bubbles can be turned on and off. To do this, you click the grid. Over here, you see this checkbox. Check it, and it turns the grid bubble off. And check it back again, it turns it on again. On both sides, you can do this. You can also do this in the edit type. Just in the plan view symbols here, you can click those off. It affects the entire type of the grid line. Turn it back on. There you go. Let's say that you have a grid line too close together. You have trouble reading the grid. So we create similar. this grid line is close. And you can't read the C grid line. To solve this, we can offset the grid by using the add elbow drag control. We can do that, and then we can use this node here to drag it down so we can see the C. You can do the same thing over here, and then drag it down, and you'll see a blue dash. That means that they're aligned. Now when you do this, it's only visible in this view on level 1. If you go to level 2, the grid is still straight. Now this is quite a big problem if you have a high-rise and you have to do this on all the grids. But to make it a little easier, go to the propagate extents, and that way you can click which floor plans you want this to be seen in. Click OK, and then we go back to level 2. It's changed. And then if you want to straighten out the grid again, grab the node and pull it up, and it snaps back straight. The last way to modify a grid line that we're going to cover is how to modify the grid line in the type properties. To access type properties, you click the grid line, click the edit type button, and the type properties dialog box shows up. If you look in the parameters, the first option is symbols, and the symbols are the grid heads or the grid bubbles. And you can, the circle is the default one, but you can change this, and Revit actually provides a few that you can load into the project, such as hexagon, no bubbles, or square. Now you can create your own by editing a previous family, or you can create a new one using a template. An example of this is I took the square and created a square inside an octagon. The next option is the center segment. Now, center segment has 3 options here. Continuous, which means that the grid line will be continuous, the end grid line and the center grid line. You can hit none, which will not show the center segment grid line in your model. Or the custom, which will allow you to edit both the grid ends and the center segment. It'll let you change the line weight, the color, the grid line pattern on both. So, and let's go ahead and do that. So we want a solid middle and a red end. And that way, there's the grid line. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of ways to customize the grid line. And I hope that you found this video helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them. Thanks so much for watching MyersReveting.com, and I will see you next time.